today we're going to talk about reasons your company should care about UX research. And I am Ilker, this is Gunjan. So why I'm here, who am I? So I'm a UX research leader in the ride-hailing champions in Asia right now, but before that I work in Institute of Computer Technology and Science in Singapore for 6 years. And my friend Gunjan.
Thank you, Ilker. Hello, everyone. I'm Gunjan. I work as a senior UX researcher with Ola Cabs. As you all know, it is pretty exciting. It is double-sided marketplace for drivers as well as users, and a lot going on there. So I hand it over to Ilker now.
Okay, so our presentation is twofold. One, I'll talk about a little bit innovation, and Gunjan give you some real-life examples how innovation can happen using UX research. So, one question, do you know that guy? All right. So, he's talking about leaders. So, if he says if you don't innovate, you're doomed. So, if you innovate, you're the leader. If you don't, you're the follower. So, how many of you in the room thinks that innovation is so important for your company future? Raise your hands. Almost everybody. So, another question is, do you guys know how to innovate? Or how to take process of innovation in your day-to-day activities when you design products? Hands? Okay. So you're in good place because I'm going to talk about a little bit role of UX research in innovation, so you can have some ideas how to put UX research in the process for innovation. So before we jump to the talk, let's look at the definition of innovation. So the definition is you should have some better solution for your products. So how you do that? You understand the needs of your customers, markets, or some unarticulated needs. So what does it mean? You go there, talk to your users, and see if they need something, or if they don't realize they need something, so you take that opportunity and innovate better solution. And this is a Wikipedia description of innovation. Okay, does anybody know that guy? Okay, but do you know what he's holding in his hand? It's written over there. So it is the first mobile phone. So that guy, Martin, sat down in a park, I guess, and in a bench, he called phone companies and told them, guys, I have some innovation here. I'm calling you in the park. This is a remote call. This is a mobile call. So it was the first innovation of a mobile phone. But we don't see that mobile phone anymore. Why? Because there's a life cycle of the products in terms of innovation. Once you have something, it's going to die, for sure. So once you innovate something, look at that S-curve. There's a fermenting cycle. So you ferment it, you create the idea, you're the first one, so it goes up. You take it off. So once you're in the takeoff, guess what happens? What's the dangers of takeoff cycle? Any idea? Yes, exactly. Other people come up with the same idea. Technology is not new anymore. So you have to compete with others. So it's a disruptive technology. It's not a blue ocean anymore. So you have to do something about it. So it comes to the maturity point. And if you don't innovate, it discontinues. So, but once the product is mature, you do some magic. We call it innovation window, and you create some magicful tool, and you create another S-curve. So then your product life cycle goes up again. There's an innovation, so you can still be in the market. As you remember, iPhone is not the first mobile phone, is not the first touchscreen thing, but it's the phone that have the expectation of users take in, and it's like the kind of innovation that helps you to grow up and start another innovation cycle. If you ask me where is iPhone in that life cycle, I don't know the answer. You Google it. My question is how you innovate and how you continue that S-curve. So there is a good article in Harvard Business Review. Dave Power has that article talking about the 4 strategies to improve and make another S-curve. So let's look at that 4 strategies. So first of all, you have to find the next S-curve. It's obvious. You have to have another idea to start your technology. But the key thing here is leaning on your customers. So what does it mean? As we look at the innovation definition, we have to understand the customer needs and the markets. So you have to talk to your customers to understand what they need, and then third thing is thinking like a designer. After you discover the need, you have to have a design thinking, actually. What's design thinking? Any idea? Come on, there's a design conference. Design thinking, you should know. Like this. So you go, talk to your user, design something, test it. If it works, go ahead. If it doesn't work, drop the idea. Think about it again. Innovate, 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 and iterate. That's the design thinking way. And lead the way. So if you have innovation, you cannot stay there and say, okay, people find me. No. You have to go out and talk to people, be a leader about your innovation, and evangelize about your product. That's the way you get the finance, you get the incentives, so you can support your product to grow. Otherwise, it will die again. So these four strategies are important to continue your innovation. Another Harvard Business Review article talks about the control chaos. Innovation is a chaotic thing. You have to manage that chaos so you can be successful. How do you do that? Article has many ideas, but I summarize here with three things. You should have first a dedicated team. Who are they? They are the fanatics. They love the idea. They want to make that idea happen. So they are the pioneers. They come together to make this thing happen and real. So you should have that dedicated team. Otherwise, forget about innovation, because you have to have the ideas, and people on the team is the most important thing here. And second thing is bunny, jumping multiple times. The bunny says here, you have to have low costs. Why? Because you need to try your ideas. So if you have expensive ideas to try, so you can just try one or two times. If you are not that big, and if one or two times it fails, then you're doomed. But if it's not costly, you can try multiple times, and you can select the best working solution. So it needs some flexibility and quickness, because once you have the idea, you quickly jump and ferment the idea, so you can be the first one in the market. And as I said, multiple approaches is very important. One is not working, then you have another idea, so you can continue grow. And again, it ties up the leadership. If you have some leadership in the company, you can have resources, so it requires long-term horizons. It requires incentives and some capital, so your leadership brings those to the company. So if we summarize those things, S-curve and control chaos in the articles, I think the innovation success formula becomes something like that. You have to have a dedicated team. You have to know your customers. You have to have low early cost, and you should be agile and quickly, and you can implement those ideas more than one time, and you should have some leadership. So the question, where UX research comes into the play in this formula. First, let's talk about dedicated team and new ideas. So UX research helps you to have some good decision making. Because we are talking to users all the time, UX researcher gives some idea to designer and product people. So once you had a brainstorming, UX researcher be the voice of the user, and they give you the needs of the user, opportunities, so you can have better ideas. Another thing is finding the problem and your way toward the solution. If you look at this, this is a double diamond of design, and it shows you the process. I think it's invented by Design Council of United Kingdom. So it says how you go from problem to solution. So if you look at that, we have 4 dimensions here. First, we discover, we go broad, and then we start defining our problem. So we, again, focus. Once we have problem, we start delivering it, like we create prototypes, early design solution, and we try multiple times and expand it again. And then when we start developing, we close the loop and go to the solution. So from here, we have multiple UX research methodologies. I'm not going to go over there. Gunjan will give you one small example of it. So we have methodologies helping the designer in all discover, define, deliver, and develop cycles of the design process. So another thing is knowing your customers. Okay, cost of bad UX. Actually, more than 70% of buying experience is all about UX. So if your users have bad UX experience, one single bad experience, they leave the brands they love. I'm not talking about the normal brand. The brands they love, they die for. And then most of the projects fails because they don't understand UX and the needs of the users. So UX research helps you there to know your customer. And also people think the good UX is more stronger and important than the advertisement. So if you have better UX, that's better income for your company as well. And people, they are going to pay more for better UX experience. So UX research helps you to understand those UX kind of related ideas and your customers. So it helps you to have better business. So validating the ideas with lower cost. So bad, if you look at the numbers over here, cost of bad UX research is really high. And good UX research helps you to reduce the cost and also helps you to reduce the support cost. So if you look at the ideas here, UX research helps you to have better direction in your project management and reduce your cost. So with that, you can have more money to implement ideas, prototype, and try it on the market. So how we do that? How we try those ideas multiple times with low cost? So this is where we come to agile UX research. And Gunjan will tell you about how we do agile research methodology and give a case study for you.
Thank you, Ilker, for handing it over to me. So yeah, let's begin with what is agile research methodology. Any ideas? Anyone? Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. So yeah, agile research methodology basically means identifying the business problem, the business objective, and the design objective at hand for those small features which are of utmost importance to the users. Now, how does it help the development team and the product team? It helps you to identify those features and then generating the multiple ideas for these features iteratively in the market. So how do you validate those ideas? You validate those ideas by doing quick testing with users by various methods, which will be discussed in the presentation later on, and then make a solution which is very much near to user needs, motivations, and behaviors. So yeah, typically, what is a research process? You start with identifying your problem statement. You have multiple solutions to them. You write a screener. By screener, I mean that you basically identify what kind of users you're chasing for. You have your insights. You share that with the team so that your design team or your product team can iterate on those ideas really quickly. So yeah, moving on to UX research template. So yeah, how do you do that in a very agile setting or something which is very much fast-paced? So there's a template which can be used by any person who would want to validate their ideas, may not be a designer only, a researcher or product manager or someone who has quick ideas to be validated too. So quickly going through the template, you basically start with identifying your business problem, you identify the user problem to be solved, you write down your research objective, you write down your research questions, and then after the research has taken place, you give the actionable insights. So there are multiple methods. I'm sure you must be knowing a lot of them. So one such method to do this is guerrilla testing, which is a low-cost method. So the process is as follows. You basically start with your research planning. You write a screening criteria. So consider an example in which you want to test a prototype which has basically to do with credit cards, right? So what will be a screening criteria? You would search for users who know about the online payments which are to be done using on the app, right? So you write your pre-questions, you write your post-questionnaire questions. Actually, you identify the scenario you want to test with the users. Then you pilot test the prototype, and then you actually go and find out people in public spaces. So yeah, what is the difference between a guerrilla testing and traditional testing methods? The guerrilla testing is low cost. Why? Because you don't have to recruit the users and bring them inside the space where you are in. What do I mean by that? Basically, you allow the users to do the testing in their natural setting and not force them to, enter a room. This is the scenario, take the prototype, and now experiences, right? So what becomes a key thing over here? So as a researcher or a designer who would want to validate your idea, you ought to have a connect with the person, right? You want to explain him what is the scenario which you want to test with him, and then basically ask his feedback. Then you have your actionable insights. So one such problem, the part of the case study is that, so how many of you have faced a problem in which some delivery guy or a cab driver is trying to find you but is just not able to find? I have faced it, at least in India I have. How many of you? Yeah, same here, yeah. So what do I mean? So this is a problem which is just for case study purposes and has nothing to do with any organization or company. So what do I mean is that so for example, you have a screen in which you must have given your location, but the guy is just not able to find you. So how would you go upon solving this problem, right? So this is a simple problem. So I just want to demonstrate that how the power of UX can be used to come up with multiple ideas for a same problem statement. Shall I go ahead? So how do you start basically? So you start basically with your research planning, in which you go and ask the users, what is the problem with the current thing which we have out there in the place. So we went out to the users in the mall, we searched them in coffee places, something like CCD. We went and we asked them, so do you think apart from sharing your location, there is any method which can help you? We came up with a simple solution, yeah, give them some place where they'll take a left from there, take a right from there, but does it help? Alas, no, I really don't think so. So what is the feedback which we got from users? We got the feedback that it will be really nice if we have something like a visual clue which will help them to get there quickly or help them to locate. So we went back and we came up with a solution, okay, let's allow the users to take a picture. But what happened? They took pictures of things which did not qualify to be a visual clue. So that can become a third design iteration. So then when you go and then you actually tell them, okay, so we already have a location as to where they actually are. So if the user cannot understand what is actually the visual clue there, you can give them some pictures which qualify to be the visual clue. For example, if I'm standing at Sony Signal, I might have something like a chroma board out there just opposite to me. So this can help the user, and the technology can intervene to actually make a process good. So as you see, this is the power of UX research. For a simple problem, you can come up with multiple solutions in a quick manner and actually do it at a very low cost. So to sum up and conclude, how does a UX researcher fits in the system, right? So a UX researcher helps you to know your customer as better as possible throughout the product life cycle, validate those ideas very quickly, and definitely generate or increase the revenue of your company. So with this, I conclude, and there are some important links through which you can connect with us, and there is a Medium publication where you would get a free, you can download the template and can use for your purpose. Thank you so much.
So Q&A. Q&A? Okay. So questions? Anybody? Okay. Start with the ladies.
Thank you. Great presentation. I was thinking, how do you navigate this complicated space of a designer doing research for the solution that they think is the right solution for the problem versus a UX researcher who, given the experience of doing research, also has strong views in terms of this is, I think, the right solution. So where does the line get drawn between design research versus UX research? Because they're getting a bit hazy as I see the field is evolving. So if you can share some thoughts on that.
Okay, so it's working? Yeah. So you're asking what's the line between UX research and design research. I think UX, once you look at UX, is a little bit more about understanding business and the whole journey. And if you work on the design, it's also understanding user behavior, but sometimes it doesn't have to be like you understand all the business objectives. So for example, let's give an idea. Once you have the product, a product just, you see the app outside of your company, people are using that, and designers are mostly try to understand how users interact with that product. But the UX of the product, for example, support. You have to support that product. For example, you have FAQs, you have live chats, all those stuff. Also, it becomes a part of experience. So UX research also look at that business objective. So support tools, we have, for example, in our companies, we look at the project of support to understand how we make more easier for users to connect us and solve their problem quickly. So it doesn't, sometimes designer may, it's also a design in the end once you have the solution, but UX researchers see that broad perspective. But if you think about like design training, you always, behavior and user understanding, but UX researcher has a little bit more marketing understanding, user understanding as well. But does it make it like, is there a line thing? It depends on how you run the business in the company. If your company thinks all those small pieces are important for the UX experience, from A to Z, you have to understand what includes better experience from support, from payment, or internal tools of your company, like how your employees perform, so it affects better experience. It depends, but it depends on your business perspective as well.
So in short, it depends.
In short, it depends on the line, but in UX research a little bit more broad view of the business, I see, if you want to be a good UX researcher.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Guys, thank you that your session had some samples for like insights and that transformed into design, like what all that can be in design from UX research to design output. But except the gorilla testing, I don't see any of the methods or steps followed are more specific to agile. Like even gorilla can be used in the traditional waterfall way also, if time is feasible, time is not that much. So where exactly you are proposing here is fits into agile environment of development.
So,
like, yeah. So,
good.
See, like my question is more about how does UX designer fits into agile? Like all other roles, like developer or a tester, they'll be there in that project for 50 minutes or 60% of time. Yeah. But we as a designer, we start very early in the phase and we end up for 10 or 20% at max at the total project time. Okay. Then we don't have any other thing in the major part of the next levels.
So your question, you want to understand how designers and UX researchers adapt themselves to agile processes.
Agile, exactly.
Okay. You want to answer that? Okay. So think about, okay, agile comes from development world. So it's like you iterate quickly and you just ship it. That's the idea. So how UX researcher, I can talk about UX researcher perspective, adapt that idea. First of all, you should have your eyes open. So you should know what's the next thing coming for your roadmap. So once you know it, you can start it early. Second thing, those low-cost methods like guerrilla helps you to get vibe of the user. So you go to the field, quickly get some insights, and then those insights you can feed the designers. And so you can have some ideas about what your customers are thinking about your initial conceptual ideas. So it can speed up the process. But this doesn't stay there. Also, you have to have some internal communication, like you have to drop all those reporting things in the agile. So usually, once we have the UX research done, what we do, we report. Instead of that, we take designer to the field and we test it there, and they see what's happening. So quickly they can go to the studio and just do something about it. So we cut the reporting. Also, we have like the Agile and Scrum thing, daily briefs. So your team members know what they have to do that day. So you quickly plan and run. So this is one way of doing things. But this is one method. You cannot have all the things in Agile. For example, you have to have marketing research or large survey. There's no shortcut on that. Or like ethnography studies. There's no shortcut. But this kind of guerrilla research at least give you, once you need to validate products, or once you need to validate your early concept, this guerrilla is a good thing. And then, as I said, you can take your designers, cut the communication protocols, just do it there quickly, they learn it, and they do something about it. So Agile is much about a learning process and doing some action around it.
What about S-curves and applying Agile methodology for getting those insights? Like, but how do you kind of decide that problem you are facing is essentially qualify for that kind of methodology? In the sense, like, there's a famous quote, like, if I ask my user, they would have asked for a faster horse. Like,
okay.
You know, so
Right.
can all this thing can be applied to every class of problem?
That's one thing. Okay, so if you look at our story, if I ask my users, it's all about attitude. So if you, for example, do marketing research and do a couple of surveys, you will get what? Their trace of memory. And I say people have bad memories. They don't even remember what they ate breakfast. So we don't do that. What we do, we see them while they do perform. What's that mean? We take the prototype, ask them, okay, show me how you do it. Then I'll see the behavior. I'll observe how they behave. So I don't ask them. I ask them only to behave, and from their behaviors, I get some clues, some insights, how they might have experienced future if I release that product. So it's not attitude. If you ask them, of course, they'll say faster horse. But if I give them a faster horse and they fall down and they say, hate that horse, it's so fast. You should make some controls for that, or I can see that while observing with the prototype. Then I can get the real need. So I'm not, in the UX research, what we don't do usually is we don't ask attitude. We try to observe the behavior with the prototypes usually.
How can you observe a behavior when something don't exist?
Behavior, so you have to...
Just to give you a context, I used to work for a cell phone manufacturers, and we kind of did a research on something like portrait mode of iPhone, like good 4 years back, and not a single user was like kind of warmed up to the idea, and then it was packaged well and given to the user, and they kind of went for it.
That's where prototypes comes into place. You cannot just, conceptually test it if there's no tangible object. So we should have some artifact that people use. So that's where prototyping comes into the play. So if you have early prototype, it doesn't matter what, it could be low fidelity, high fidelity, it could be paper, but you should have some artifact that they can think around, they can behave around, otherwise you cannot observe it. There's no other easy way, sorry.